Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the February 19th Conservation Commission meeting. At this time, anyone who wishes to, please rise and salute the flag. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, so we have Brian Averback,
Here.
Joseph Lavalley,
Here.
Wilson Carrera,
Here.
Thomas Carlton will not be with us. Amelia Viscay will also not be joining us this evening, and Bernardo will also not be joining this evening. I'm not really sure on our new commissioner if she has been sworn in, so we'll tackle that as we get to it. But thank you all for coming this evening. First up is review and approval of last time's minutes, meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Any changes first or additions? No?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Okay, first up is a request for a certificate of compliance, 810 Washington Avenue, DEP file number 0610793. This is the Stack and Company project over on Washington Avenue. And do we have a representative with us via Zoom? Or is it in person?
Yes,
Yes,
Daniel
there we
Sibber
are.
for the project.
Excellent. How you doing this evening?
Doing great, thanks.
All right. If you wouldn't mind taking it away?
Well, I was told that we did not need to be at the meeting this evening, so I don't have anything prepared. But happy to answer any questions. The project is nearing completion, should be complete within the next several days, and expected to open for occupancy on March 1st. And we're really excited about the 30 apartments that we're going to be providing to the Revere housing stock imminently. So if there is anything specific you'd like me to address or you'd like to ask, I'm happy to answer it.
I did have an opportunity to walk this site down, and the site is stabilized. There is no finished work that needs to be done. All the flashing and everything abutting the building adjacent is all buttoned up. The stormwater management system is in place. Wilson and I were there to see this, and for the most part, it is just a little bit of finished work left for this. And if any of the other commissioners have any questions about this, please feel free.
No, I agree with you. I was there as well, and I think the storm water management looked fine. I think just like you said, a couple of things just to wrap it up, and yeah. But I think overall, I think it looks good, almost complete.
Agreed. Agreed. It is definitely a very large building, but it is definitely within the Wetlands Protection Act, and it is definitely compliant with it as well. At this time, I'd like to open it up to any members in the audience if they have anything that they wish to say about this project specifically. Nope, hearing nothing. I would call for a motion to approve the certificate of compliance.
I would just make one point of order to the chair, just to give an extra second for people on Zoom too, if there's anybody that has anything to say. All
Thank
right.
you for the reminder, I appreciate that.
I'll make a motion to approve the certificate of compliance.
Can I get a second?
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
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 Aye. Thank you very much, and we'll have signed papers for you with this at the office for you guys to pick up. Thank you very much for joining us. There you go, Brian. Okay, next up is a notice of intent, a DEP file 0610835. This is the City of Revere, and this is for the Revere High School, 190 VFW Parkway. Excellent. Oh, excellent. I appreciate that. And also in attendance with us is Commissioner Amelia Visquet. Open up the hearing for this. Yes, as soon as the camera gets it, we'll be able to see it on our monitors. Thank you. I know it's all.
Okay, I'm live. For the record, Claire Hogeboom, wetland scientist with LEC Environmental Consultants. I'm representing the applicant for this notice of intent. Joining me in person is Christy Lyons. She's with Consigli Construction. They're the construction manager for the project. Via Zoom, we have a few folks from the team as well if there are any direct questions after I get through the presentation. We have Brian Dakin with Leftfield. He's the owner's project manager. Laura Garvey with Sanborn Head. She's the licensed site professional working with the contaminants that I'll speak to. And we have David Conway with Niche Engineering, the civil engineer on the project. So this notice of intent, I know the commission's been long awaiting, learning more about the Revere High School project at the Wonderland site. This is for site preparation activities, so it's not necessarily for construction of the entire school at this point. It's really just phase one, preparing the site for that next phase of construction. So to start the project off, the contractor would be enclosing the eastern portion of the site with construction fencing, chain link fencing, that's about 6 to 8 feet tall, I believe. And that's shown here in pink surrounding that portion of the site. It's all in the paved portions of the site. And as you see here, that sort of western boundary of the limit of work runs right along the 200-foot riverfront area that extends from the eastern county ditch. So there's not going to be any work within riverfront area as a part of this phase one. Along the construction fencing will be erosion and sedimentation controls. We had a site visit with a few of the commission members on February 1st, and a commission member requested that we provide a little more detail on the plan set of specific erosion and sedimentation controls installed around the limit of work. So along the 200-foot riverfront area, we're going to have super silt fence, which is just silt fence affixed to the fence, construction fencing. And that'll be paired with mulch wattles as well. And then those mulch wattles will just continue around the entire remainder of the limit of work. And when I say limit of work here, that's really encompassing where the fencing is. However, the limit of disturbance is not going to occur within that entire footprint. As you can see here in the gray hatchwork, that is the proposed pavement and remnant foundations that'll be removed as part of this part of the project. It's about 4.4 acres worth of impervious area to be removed. The contractor will also be removing a sort of paved walkway within the interior of the former dog racetrack, and the commission might recall that that is an isolated wetland protectable under your ordinance. So we have about 2,200 square feet of work occurring there to remove that concrete walkway. Outlined here in orange will be some vegetation removal. A lot of debris and trash is in that portion of the site as well. So that portion of vegetation down there will be removed as well. The project also involves removal of some decommissioned utilities, abandoned structures, and just things that are either currently disconnected, not usable throughout the site. So for the most part, that's outlined or highlighted. in more bold coloring, but it'll really be to the discretion of the contractor what they take offline and what they decommit or what they remove during this phase of the project. Overall, we want to keep the limit of disturbance at or below 9.9 acres. So in addition to that 4.4 acres, we have about 5.5 acres of usable land that the contractor will work within, and they will keep a detailed log weekly of any land disturbance to ensure that they don't exceed that 9.9 acres of land disturbance. A big portion of that reasoning is coming to leaving a lot of the pavement in that northern portion of the site here, just in an effort to reduce the amount of land disturbance and potential destabilization of the site at this phase. Overall, as I noted earlier, 2,200 square feet of impacts to the isolated wetland. We have about 42,000 square feet of impacts to bordering land subject to flooding, and up to 9.9 acres of impacts to land subject to coastal storm flowage, as the site is entirely located within the floodplain. I believe in addition to providing the revised plans to the commission after the site walk, we also provided a one-page letter prepared by Niche that really briefly outlined and clearly summarized the stormwater measures that would be implemented during construction to protect resource areas and abutting properties during this work. We'll also require a NPDES permit, which would require a stormwater pollution prevention plan, or a SWIP, and that would be outlining all of the stormwater measures to be implemented during construction. So we'll provide that to the commission prior to the start of any work. The final piece is highlighted here in yellow. That is the area of lead contamination that was identified on the site, and that's within the former footprint of the clubhouse associated with the racetrack. So that's where Sanborn Head has been doing a lot of research and examining the site and the extent of that lead contamination. They will be preparing a RAM plan, which will ultimately outline the exact remediation measures to excavate and remove that contaminated soil from the site. So that's going to be a part of this sort of phase one part of the project. And any documentation they provide and prepare to do that, we will provide to the commission for your records as well.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, so with that, I think that covered it for me.
Excellent. I see that a portion of the stormwater management system is underneath the removal, the concrete area that you will be removing. What kind of efforts will you be taking to ensure that debris, rubble, construction won't be ending up into the stormwater management system that you currently have there? And also, follow up to that, what kind of condition have you done an analysis on the current stormwater management system to see if it is online, in use, functional? Where are we at with that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think with respect to what's under the foundation, for the most part, it's really drainage that's somewhat minimally connected to other pieces of infrastructure within the site, but the contractor would absolutely ensure that, you know, wherever they cut it off to pull out infrastructure sort of upstream, if you will, there would be sort of that disconnect or like a plug of the stormwater system, so anything they removed wouldn't continue discharging downstream. To the second point, as far as the status of any of the existing infrastructure, to my knowledge, it's not in great shape. Has not been maintained for many years. I believe Dave Conway is on virtually. I don't know if he's raising his hand. Potentially, he might be able to touch a bit more on what, from an engineering standpoint, they...
I can speak to it a little bit.
Thank you, Dan.
The storm water system there, as Claire said, it has not been maintained. There is no real, like, any quality components of the existing stormwater system. There's nothing that addresses quality. It's simply some catch basins that then outlet into the Eastern County ditch. During construction, we're going to ask the contractor to clean the existing structures that are going to remain through this phase. They'll all be protected with silt sacks, maybe some filter mitts around them to basically reduce any potential for anything to get into them. But there's not really much of a functioning stormwater system out there now.
Dare I say that probably hasn't been pumped out in 20 years, at least.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So if you do find stormwater management are a part of the system that is functional and is flowing, I would definitely want to make sure that we have silt socks and all sorts of, in the basins themselves,
Absolutely.
as well as adding that to the inspectional process and the weekly inspectional process that you will have on site.
Absolutely. The final detail sheet of this plan does have catch basin inlet protection details on it. So that's definitely included in the plan set itself, and it'll be included in the SWIP and the stormwater management during construction documents.
Sounds good. I don't have any other questions. If any of the other commissioners have questions?
I had just a quick question. In regards to traffic, is this all being contained inside of the land, the lot that's being done? Will there be anything involved with traffic that will affect anybody?
That is a great question. So the site access will be provided off of Butler Circle. Right there. That's where the existing entrance is. And the gate will be set back, I believe, at least 10 feet. It's going to be like 30 feet. Okay. So it'll be at least 30 feet off of that entrance, so if any cars are coming in, they'll have some space to pull in without actually stopping at Butler Circle. But with regards to safety of folks coming in and folks getting around while contractors are coming in and out, VHB is also a part of the project team. They're the traffic engineer. They've been working with MassDOT, District 4, Boston, we'll have to get a temporary construction access permit through them for this phase of the work as well. So they'll be working closely with MassDOT to ensure that any safety measures are implemented as well.
And one question that whenever this project gets brought up, and I get asked all the time as a commissioner on this, is whether or not the people that have been living in that area have been removed as of today, if the site is clear, basically.
To my knowledge, it is an ongoing effort from the Revere Police Department to be assisting with that effort. It's something that is a big part of why we wanted to take the vegetation out in that southern portion of the site and enclose the entire site with construction fencing, just in an effort to protect everybody's public safety during this process. So that's something that the project team is keeping in mind and continuing to coordinate with the city to make sure that those folks are off the site before any of this work starts.
I think that's perfect as far as for the safety of everyone around, as well as for even safety of the site, being able to have it as difficult as humanly possible for someone that isn't supposed to be there, I think is the best for the city of Revere and for everyone involved.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
When it comes to the erosion control and the sedimentation control, the process to keep making sure during the construction that what I've seen in the past is with construction, it gets moved or because this is going to take many years, it's going to be maintained. Is there a plan for that or?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's absolutely a part of the, I believe it's even in the stormwater plan that we provided in the notice of intent application, but that SWIP that I mentioned earlier, that'll be a federal permit with the EPA. And that will require the contractor to do weekly inspections and maintenance immediately. Usually it's something like within 24 hours they would have to maintain or repair anything, and regular reporting as well. So they would have reports on site documenting all of these inspections. And there's usually going to be another inspection that would occur after typically a 1/4 inch rain event or more. So there will absolutely be measures in place for the contractor to constantly monitor and maintain.
And the same for the cars coming in and out, just to make sure the pathway, it has the proper erosion control for we don't want like that dirt to be on the street or vice versa.
Yeah.
I know they probably will do it once, but it will require continuous maintenance just to make sure we keep the safe.
Yeah, and at that entrance from Butler Circle, there's going to be crushed stone placed down. It's
Correct,
going to
yeah.
be the construction
Okay.
entrance there, and that'll be up to the contractor to maintain that and sweep it.
Do we know how often they're gonna keep the crushed stone is gonna be added after, like, because over time, with the amount of cars going in and out, it's gonna sink, so how is the plan for maintenance of that?
I believe it would just be in accordance with the SWIP or in accordance with the documents to maintain that.
As needed, I would say. We're gonna monitor it and then as needed to.
If you wouldn't
replace
mind.
that.
Come on,
It's
thank
gonna
you.
be as needed, so we'll monitor it just like we will, all other
Okay, because.
measures on
yeah.
site and maintain it.
Okay, great, because as with the summer, depending on the season, the dust, it was gonna be there, and also the contamination from that dirt coming in and out, so we just wanna make sure we take care of that, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I'll just say that, obviously dust control during the construction while the raw ground is open is obviously, it's a concern to all of us on that. So if you do have ways of mediating that, that's definitely something that we'd love to hear more about.
Sure, I can speak to that. We will have dust control throughout the entire project. Part of the thought process for us is why we're leaving majority of the site paved is for that very reason, to help control dust in that early phase. So we will have water trucks on site as needed to help control dirt and dust. We'll also employ wheel wash stations at the construction entrances to help control that, in addition to the construction entrances with the gravel base and whatnot.
Thank you.
I would also be curious to know how long after deconstruction, after you remove the concrete, the lead contamination, how long will it be on site? And what's your plan to remove? What are timetables to remove it off the site?
Sure, I might ask that Laura Garvey be unmuted for that. She's the lead on that part of the project and knows it way better than me.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can, Laura.
Great. So we would pre-characterize the soil prior to excavation in that area so that it can be, ideally, it would be dug and hauled the same day. If needed, we will stockpile on site and do the best to keep it off site as quick as we can. I'd say at the extended range, it's likely going to be a month or two that would be on site, but ideally it's going to be loaded and trucked off the same day it's excavated.
I would anticipate the lead contamination that you are remediating would be removed immediately. I'm sure you wouldn't want to have that on site for 2 months.
Agreed. If it is on site, it would be covered with poly sheeting that would be weighted down to prevent any movement of that soil or dust to be generated from that stockpile.
Also, when we get inclement weather, I'm not exactly sure what your timetable is to begin the demolition of this site, but we get some pretty rainy spring, and I would want to make sure that that would not be on site for too long. And
Understood.
And to follow up to that, what part or what phase of the demolition would the abatement of the lead be in this part of in this phase of the project?
Do you mean at the beginning, middle, or end?
Yes, I'd be curious if you were going to take care of it right away, or if you were going to when would you be doing that?
I'm not entirely sure we know exactly when we're going to be doing it. Our plan is to mobilize for this scope of work in June.
Okay.
And our plan is to run June, July, and complete the scope of work by the end of August.
Okay,
So it'll happen during the summer months.
okay. A little drier then. Thank you. Any other questions?
Chair, I would just kind of piggyback off of what you said. It kind of reminded me of, for those people who live in the area, the Russo's Tuxedo site that burned down to the ground.
Yep.
And they had, it was asbestos, and they have still the asbestos things around it. They left that plot of land with apparently asbestos dirt, covered, barely, horribly done for, I don't know, 4 months at this
At
point.
least.
They just left it and they didn't care. And I know that isn't a completely different site from you guys. It's just fresh in the mind of people who live in the area, driving by it every single day, that you see the big asbestos stuff. So when you have the lead side of it, it just kind of brings to mind of how long and how well done that'll be. We just want that to be kind of in your minds that, the air from the ocean, it whips to that area. I live right on the ocean. I feel it, and even in that area, it still goes there. So any of that stuff that can be not in the ears for as little time as possible, just so it's not stuck for months like that, that would be appreciated for everybody involved. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Okay. At this time, I'd like to open it up to the public. If anybody in the audience or via Zoom has anything to say in opposition to this project, or against, or for the project, please come forward. Okay. Hearing none, motion to close out the hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Hearing is closed. And you guys have a very robust plan to mitigate the majority of this. And the timetable seems as though that the material's not going to stay on site very long. And I would definitely want you to make sure that you provide all the documents to us prior to construction and before our pre-construction meeting. But thank you very much for your time. At this time, I would like to call for a motion to approve the notice of intent for this project.
I'll make a motion to approve the NOI for this project.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Appreciate your time. All right, moving right along. I'm not sure if Amelia can hear me, but when you have a chance, Amelia, could you make sure that you get to the office to sign the forms here as well? Thank you. All right, next up is a notice of intent, DEP file number 0610836. This is also the City of Revere, Route 1A southbound infrastructure improvements. This is the roundabout at Gibson Park and access road proposed construction for a roundabout to promote and improve access to Route 1A and Gibson Park.
So,
Open the hearing.
good evening, everybody. I'm Julie DeMar. I'm with the Department of Planning and Community Development, and I am the lead project manager for the city. Myself, along with my director, direct boss, Tom Zarowski, we've been overseeing this part of the project for the Riverfront Master Plan. Tonight, I'm joined with Chairman Wong from Howard Stein Hudson. He is here and present with us, and then Peter Robowski is actually joined us through Zoom. And then I am also here with our environmental specialist, Devin Herrick, and they're both going to be helping present this information tonight. So tonight we are looking for approval of our submitted NOI. A little bit information about the project. Tonight we're going to be talking about Phase 1 only, which is the roundabout and the traffic infrastructure improvements for that part of the project only. Phase 2, the Gibson Park Access Road, will be back again when that part of the project is ready to be submitted to this commission. The phase one part of the project will probably take about 2 years to complete. Have not awarded the bid to any contractor. It has not gone out to bid yet. But when it does, there'll be a construction schedule that will be approved prior to any construction commencing. When we talk about traffic management plan, that plan is currently with Mass DOT that has not been approved. Usually that approval comes when we get the state access permit. Lastly, there will be some detours, some overnight shifts. All residents in the area will be notified of any type of detours or overnight shifts that should occur. But mostly importantly, and what we're going to talk about tonight, is really the erosion controls and the steps that we will do to keep this, the project from affecting the environment during construction. That will be maintained throughout the construction. I'm now going to turn it over to Devin, and she's going to talk a little bit about the environmental impacts.
We're hoping to be able to display a presentation that's showing on the laptop that's connected, but if not, I do have some paper copies that I can hand to you.
You are all set.
Perfect.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Great.
If you could
So
just make sure to state your name for the record.
absolutely. Devin Herrick, wetland scientist with Weston and Sampson.
Thank you.
This is the construction schedule slide that Julie had just gone through, so I'm going to just slide right on over to an aerial map just to refresh folks' mind as to where this project is located. It is out on Point of Pines. For anyone who is perhaps a little less familiar, this is a zoomed in view on what the area looks like right now. So this proposed project looks on the northeast side of Route 1A. Right now you'll see 2 concentric ramps, and that is the area where we are proposing to install a roundabout. As Julie had mentioned, there is project phasing involved. We are here to discuss phase 1, which has a longer construction period time. Phase 2 requires additional permitting in the form of some Article 97 concerns and Chapter 91, and it has a much shorter construction timeline, so that one's only a matter of months. It's basically just installing a paved roadway in an already flat area. There's no regrading involved. So we expect that these 2 phases will complete roughly around the same time, despite them being on very different tracks due to permitting constraints. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Taryn to discuss a bit about the project.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Taryn Wong. I'm a senior civil engineer with Howard Stein Hudson and one of the project engineers on this project. So with this slide, I'd just like to again reiterate that we are talking about phase 1 tonight. And phase 1 is the new roundabout intersection that replaced the 2 concentric ramps, the southbound ramps. I think Devin might have noted northeast corner, I think northwest, the western edge side of Route 1A. We're talking about the southbound portion of Route 1A. So 100% of this project is within state right-of-way and is under the jurisdiction of MassDOT. We will require an access permit from both MassDOT and DCR because the project limits to the south intersect with Linway. We also are proposing some work on Linway, and that is under the jurisdiction control of DCR. This project is also adjacent to the current and basically finished site development of 22 Wynn, also known as Gibson Point, that large building with several apartment units, and also the Gibson Park Access Project, which was stated to be phase 2. That is installing that driveway with no regrading, providing access to and from the roundabout for the proposed Gibson Park upgrades. But again, that is phase 2. And with phase 2, we hope to file that Gibson Park access under a separate NOI as the permitting proceeds. I'd like to also note that during this construction of phase 1, the roundabout and the new on and off ramps, that emergency vehicles will have access to residential areas, including the Point of Pine neighborhoods on the eastern side of Route 1A, as well as the Riverside community as well too. During all times of construction, we know that this is a concern. We have actually worked quite closely with the Revere Fire Department, even on their reconstruction of their new fire department, actually right at the edge of the project limits. I think the new Point of Pines fire station. I can't remember exact name, but yes. We've done quite a lot of coordination there. So right now on the screen, the PowerPoint is the plans here. So we'll try to go everything through the PowerPoint, but if we do need a zoomed in version or anything, we can display it here on my left with the hard copy. But just like to go through, I'm going to iterate that there is an overall graphic at the end to hope to orient us a little better, I'm just going to go through each individual construction plan sheet to describe what the work is happening. But again, I will provide a high-level combined graphic, like a colorized graphic at the end of these construction plans. So here, the project limits to the south would be at John Ave, Hayes Ave, that intersection where Route 1A meets those two roads. We are not proposing to do any work in the intersection, but our project will end right before that intersection. We are looking to construct a new on-ramp, so replacing one of those concentric ramps with a new on-ramp called Ramp B. That be adjacent to the Gibson Park parcel, and that would be allowing vehicles to enter Route 1A southbound. And this is what this plan here is showing.
In this phase, can you go back to that? In this phase of the project, what impact will there be on Hayes Ave during this portion of the construction?
There should be no impact to Hayes Ave. There will be impact, you will see construction vehicles and construction equipment on Route 1A, but there should be no, our current plans have vehicles, no construction staging or no equipment staging on Hayes Ave. We should not be impacting that road at all with this project.
I'm sorry, I know you said at the end you wanted to show us the overall of everything. I mean, he's lived there his whole life and he still doesn't understand what's going on. So if you wouldn't mind skipping to the end for a second to just even a minute of just showing us what the end project looks like, maybe even a comparison of the end versus what it is now, because I'm still completely confused.
So I think, so currently, if you look up at the screen or the screen in front of you, the current interchange as it exists today is kind of faded out on the screen. So what we will be doing with this project is we'll be reconstructing the ramp coming from Lynn into Revere, and it'll be reconstructed and it will lead into this roundabout, which is actually going to fit, I want to say, about a little bit more than a third or of the space that is currently there now. So we're kind of, it's a smaller roundabout in that space that is currently within that loop now. And then what it will allow for access for either to the Gibson Point development, to the improvements at Gibson Park, and then it will also allow for connectivity for motorists driving from Route 1A South back into the Point of Pines towards Revere Beach. It allows for first responders that are stationed at the Alden Ave Firehouse direct access to the Riverside without having to go all the way down the Linway, hook around, and come back up. So that's going to be crucial, especially as that area becomes more of a recreational area where plans to have a boating facility there. It would be great to have access for people to be able to, if in the event there's an emergency.
So just to confirm, so normally to go to Lynn, I would be going to the right of the fire department, past that, and that whole area. What happens to that street?
So that will kind of loop into this leg into the roundabout. So if you're coming from the Point of Pines, you can see on the where the two lanes are split, the right-hand lane will lead you to the roundabout from the Point of Pines. And then the other, coming back from Gibson Point, it will lead you to back to the Point of Pines. And we're eliminating the slip lane onto the entrance of the Linway and Revere. So that whole lane at the very end where the crosswalk is, that right there where Taryn has his cursor, that slip lane will be eliminated. That'll all become green space.
And just as he mentioned before, Hayes Ave, obviously, is there going to be a 20-foot cutback for that?
For which avenue?
For Hayes Ave.
Hayes Ave.
It's
No, that should not be affected at all.
Okay.
Because that is not part of the project.
Okay, because I'm just, this project, just as far as like trying to understand it, I mean, this picture that you have is now I can actually somewhat
Yep.
envision what you're saying. So I imagine that I now take the left before the fire department, I'd go through, And the way I'm looking as if I'm going to go to Lynn, it would be if the circle to the right, like, it looks like that, if you put your cursor up a little bit, just up a little bit to the right, to the right, to the right, to the right, there. That's how I would get to Lynn?
No, that
No.
would be the off-ramp if you're
That's
coming
the
from Route
off-ramp.
1A south.
So how do I get to Lynn?
That won't change.
That does not change.
Yeah, correct.
Oh.
So we are not affecting Route 1A northbound at all.
Northbound, it's
So the
just
existing ramps that, the on and off ramps from Route 1A going northbound across the General Edwards Bridge towards Lynn is not part of this project, is not being altered. That is remaining the same.
Got it, okay.
But if
That
you're
was what
coming
was
from
confusing
Lynn,
the hell
let's
out of
say
me.
you're coming from
So if
Lynn,
you're
generating,
coming- yes, if
yeah,
you're
coming
from
across the
Lynn.
General Edwards Bridge, the entrance of the off-ramp, if you wanted to enter the Point of Pines neighborhood, actually is very similar to where it is today. The biggest change here is your on-ramp. Existing on-ramp will actually be completely moved to the other side, and you'll be now heading almost parallel, you could say, to Route 1A southbound, climbing up, and then meeting and merging with Route 1A southbound. And that, again, will happen all before the intersection of Route 1A, Hayes, and John Ave.
Thank you.
Of course.
This makes way more sense seeing this than before, so
It's very
appreciate it.
difficult to imagine, and this is probably the clearest picture
Yeah.
we can have come up with, because we're overlaying existing infrastructure, which is confusing enough as it is, and doesn't really provide direct access to the area.
I know the last time, I'm sorry, one last point, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I know the last time we spoke was about getting to this point. If you could have one slide that's kind of like an overlay of this over the existing, I think that's gonna be the way for every single person to really see the differences. Or even a side by side, that would be great. Sorry, Chair.
No, it's quite all right. Appreciate the question. The on-ramp that you will have that connects into 1A southbound, that is definitely a lot closer than the existing road that you have now. And how will you mitigate neighborhood impacts? And also, when we did the site walk down, it really wasn't made abundantly clear that you'd be disturbing as much of the Barrier Beach area that you are. When we kind of walked it down, it kind of seemed as though it would be limited to the removal of the slipway as well as just reworking the ramp over here. I did not realize that there would be work to extend and move over into the neighborhood side of it. It's just a lot of Barrier Beach to impact for this part of the project.
Yep, so Devin can speak to that, for the Barrier Beach impact, but for the traffic impact for the Route 1A south, to go back on to, if you're exiting from Gibson Park and you want to go back, so that is, it should not affect the area in a way that is going to make it impassable. I think there may be some detours through that area during the construction.
I just worry that changing the topography of this very delicate area is going to have an impact on how water moves, how drainage happens in this area. And I want to be very clear that I do not want to have a situation where residents are calling me because water now can't move somewhere in this very sensitive Barrier Beach.
Okay. Devin, do you want to?
Well, perhaps if you don't mind, can we go back and finish
Yeah, let's-
describing,
Yeah.
then
Yeah,
we'll go
let's-
into the
yeah,
impact,
let's
but
get
then
back to
it'll
the
go all
beginning.
out of order.
I would, no, we just kind of want to get a visualization. And
Absolutely.
now let's continue with the,
Yeah,
thank you
and
very
then we'd be
much.
happy to get to the Barrier Beach section.
I would appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question at this point?
One sec, yes, please.
Hi. Could you go back to that last image? Yeah. If you're coming, oh, by the way, it's Bigfoot Ave, there's no R in it.
Okay.
Just a point of correction there. If you're coming down to access the Point of Pines now, you have to make a sharp right turn, which will allow you to go down to the Pines, Bigfoot Ave, Alden Ave, et cetera, et cetera. Do you see the cutoff I'm talking about that exists right now?
Yep, instead of the slipway, you're.
So are you talking about coming up the Linway and
I'm
trying
going
to?
down North Shore Road.
Going down North
And I'm
Shore.
going to take a right to go to the Point of Pines.
Okay, so if you were to, so you would be heading north or southbound? Northbound?
Northbound.
So, okay,
Northbound.
so if you were to go northbound and you wanted to go to the Point of Pines, it would still be,
The same.
Yep, same way, and you take that right, stop right there.
right, so
Right,
you
now-
would, you would still take that first exit that would put you towards, I believe it's, I get mixed up with the streets, but it's near the street where the yacht club is. So
Yes.
you would take that
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
and that would take you back into the Point of Pines.
My question here is, now, I'm very familiar with this area. That's a rather sharp turn right there. And as of right now, the only people with access it would be people that want to go down to the Point of Pines, Yacht Club, et cetera, et cetera. But now, are there any traffic studies to show what increased flow of traffic there will be because now you're going to have the people that will be having access to all the apartments too?
So we only have traffic count for the Gibson Point area. So we do not have traffic counts for any development on the Linway and land. We have traffic counts just for this particular project.
So I'm asking-
And that is in the, I believe it's in the NOI. It is in the NOI. It was in the MIPA submission, but we can certainly send you that information. I believe that the end result of that traffic study showed a very minimal, if that, increase in traffic from people coming from the development into the Point of Pines, or even people trying to maneuver their way off of North Shore Road from the southbound side and kind of skating through Revere Beach Boulevard to access the train, because this is actually going to be more work and more time for them to come off the southbound ramp, get into this roundabout situation, and then try to work their way back to the boulevard, where you've also taken away the direct right-hand turn lane onto the boulevard. There's going to be a lot of stop-and-go movements now that are not here. So if you were somebody trying to get to Wonderland or any of those places, and you think you're going to use the boulevard because you think it's quicker, that's going to be eliminated.
What I'm referring to at that point is that when people make that turn, you don't, first of all, that turn right now is not used to a great extent. It's only used for people who are turning down into the Point of Pines, Yacht Club, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're going to increase it for the Gibson Point people, I'm wondering if that would result in a backup of cars. And as you can see, that lane that goes backwards, back up to ramp, is not very long. So if you have like 3, 4, 5 cars that are all trying to make that access at the same time, you're going to run into a problem there. Because it might go all the way back to the point where it's blocking the right lane of traffic on North Shore Road.
All right, so I will have to look at the traffic study to see if that
Julie,
is
can I-
taken into account. Okay, go ahead, Pete. Sorry.
Yes, so our traffic analysis, we did look at all of the actions around that area. As Julie mentioned, that ramp that you're talking about is not in the scope of work. I know that's not what you're suggesting, but the number of people anticipated, so we did a forecasted analysis to say how many new vehicles are going to be accessing this park or accessing Gibson Point due to the new development. Now, our project is not bringing these new people, correct, right? So that development already exists. Our project, the scope of our project, is to redo these concentric ramps so that people can navigate through the area. And we did include the Gibson Point development and the Gibson Park improvement program to show that there would be more people visiting each of those sites. And we did, I'm not the traffic engineer who performed this study, so I don't want to put direct numbers on it, However, I can tell you with confidence that we took conservative assumptions, which are outlined in the NOI, and they show no significant, I don't think even any delays added by new visitors using that off-ramp or any other access point to get to Gibson Point or Gibson Park. We've got enough capacity in that roundabout, and the current existing infrastructure is not changing. The demand is not changing significantly. So the specific concern you're talking about of vehicles backing up on that off-ramp is something that we have explored, and it is not going to be a traffic congestion issue based on the studies that we've done.
Thank you for that clarification, Peter. I'd like to get us back on track. So, and to that point, probably a story for another time at this point, but please, Mr. Wong, continue.
Yeah, so I'll just quickly go through this since we were able to see a large overview, but with each of these individual sheets, and I'm going to show, I just explain a little more in detail. So move to the next slide here. You can see this is where we can call it the eye or the center of the roundabout. The one thing I'd like to point out here is that actually the roundabout will be able to fit, again, all within the state right-of-way. So we're actually having no impacts beyond the state right-of-way. All this work is contained, and actually the new roundabout, the new ramps, off-ramp actually is all within the existing footprint of the existing road. And actually a lot of the existing on-ramp roadway is actually being reused for that connection to Gibson Point. And you can see that as we head under Route 1A, there is that overhead bridge, right? And the underpass, we are not planning to impact that bridge, rebuild that bridge, do any modifications to that bridge. We are merely just using the existing footprint of what's underneath the roadway, not affecting the slopes. There's painted, I think there's walls currently painted, mural painted on the abutments of the bridge. That is not being affected as we head under Route 1A, here labeled as Gibson Park Drive on the plans. Next slide here, and this is actually as going towards the General Edwards Bridge. Today, what is labeled as Gibson Way, which was formerly known as 22 Whitten, actually is being closed as part of this project, so that access, that people who are currently accessing Gibson Point would be having to turn right off of Route 1A to enter Gibson Point. That's actually being closed, and that maneuver is being facilitated with that roundabout and the new Gibson Way that's being, I'll flip one slide back, as you can see here on the top side of your screen.
That is quite a treacherous turn to get in there. That's good. Anyways, sorry.
No, not a problem. And then the last slide here, before we go into that full graphic, this is the work that is happening down at the Linway. Again, DCR controls and owns Linway, so we will be filing an access permit with them, and we are in the process of that. But the one thing I do want to note out here and point out is that removal of the existing right-hand slip lane. So this is not a removal of the right-hand turn lane. It is actually a consolidation of that right turn maneuver into the intersection, actually bring back green space, actually making the pedestrian network more connected, rather than having a pedestrian having to cross both the slip lane and then cross what we have labeled here on the slide as Gibson Park Drive. So that, again, right turn is still being provided for. It is a dedicated right turn lane, so vehicles can turn right onto the Linway. And again, that overview graphic for us all to see colorize the proposed conditions overlaid to the existing conditions. So we just want to highlight some of the benefits of this infrastructure improvement project. So we're creating access to the Route 1A northbound and southbound for the residents east of Route 1A. As part of this project, and we kind of touched upon in some of our questions and answers here, that we're actually providing minimal traffic impacts to the adjacent neighborhoods. If anything, we're improving access. And the nice thing we like to highlight with this project too is in addition of a shared use path that is for providing accommodations and access for both pedestrians and bicyclists to the Gibson Park, and also improved access to the Point of Pines neighborhood. And with that too, as Julie mentioned earlier, we're providing, helping to reduce actually response time for emergency vehicles, that they can actually use all this new infrastructure to get to, the place they need to be. And that elimination of that slip lane that I mentioned down near the Linway. And I want to talk about the slide really quickly about the traffic considerations. So again, briefly answered before, was the proposed roundup design will not increase traffic volumes and the roundabout actually has the sufficient capacity now and for the future to accommodate anticipated future traffic volumes. Some methodology I would like to explain what was used here is there was a background growth rate compounded annually for 10 to the build year and was utilized to account for any developments in the area which would impact the project roadways. And then lastly, we understand that with construction there'll be impacts, but we anticipate that there'll be 3 24-hour detours with overnight shifts where traffic will be diverted through a detour. These shifts will not be sequential and overnight, and they'll be done overnight to minimize the public's impact to the public. We understand that there's a big concern from the neighborhoods, both the Riverway neighborhood and the Point of Pines neighborhood, about unannounced traffic detours that will be well communicated through the City of Revere, and again, highlighted here. We hope to maximum of 3 24-hour detours and not non-sequential and done overnight to minimize public impact. And I'll turn it back over to Devin to continue on with our presentation.
Thank you so much, Sharon. So this proposed project will impact 3 resource areas under the Wetlands Protection Act. We are looking at Barrier Beach and Coastal Dune. Those 2 are actually located on top of one another because the entirety of the Point of Pines Peninsula is a barrier beach, and it also is comprised of either Coastal Beach or Coastal Dune. In this case, we're a little inland, so everything is characterized as Coastal Dune. So those impacts will be duplicated, but they're in the same space. We also have 100-year floodplain impacts. That does not make up the entirety of the project site, but it is a good chunk of it. And we can see that here. It's a little hard to see. I'm hoping that on your screens it might be a little clearer, but the entirety of the area is stippled to show that we have that Barrier Beach and Dune area. And then we also do have a map showing you the approximate limits of the 100-year floodplain. Those were updated on the plan set based on elevation. I believe we're talking about elevation 10 in this particular area. So to break down the specific impact numbers for you, we are looking at a total impact to 100-year floodplain or land subject to coastal storm flowage of 65,611 square feet. When we're talking about permanent impacts, we're talking about anything that's going to result in a grade change, anything that's going to result in a materials change, whereas a temporary impact would be something that is currently impervious, going to remain impervious, currently pervious, going to remain so, and will not experience any kind of grade change. We also have Barrier Beach and Coastal Dune, both of which we're expecting to see a total of 186,335 square feet of impact. One thing that we are looking to do on this site to improve the area is right now plantings are very sparse, if present at all. It's just a weedy mix that's located on the side of the highway. So instead, 44,714 square feet of the area will be replanted with native dune plantings. We have included the planting list so you folks can see the kind of palette that we're looking for. But they were all taken off of the CZM list, and they are recommended for plantings in dune areas. So just a brief reminder on where we are in the design process. We have the stamped plans, and we are completing the environmental permitting. We will then go to the final step, which will be to get the state access permits issued from both DOT and DCR, and at that point, we will be ready to go. At this point, we'd love to turn it back for any questions that you might have so that we can answer them for you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So during the construction or after the fact, you have all these plantings. Who will be responsible for maintaining them?
They're in the DOT right-of-way, so they will be DOT's responsibility to continue. They are dune plantings, so they don't really require much in the way of maintenance. I would imagine that they'll follow their current mowing schedule, which is not very frequent throughout the year. I think it's maybe once or twice, but dune plantings are generally such that they don't require much maintenance, which is a benefit.
My fear is that they will see tall grass and just clear cut, and then we are left with what we have now. Is there a plan in place to keep these as natural as possible within reason so that visibility is not diminished in these areas, especially in the circle? You have a good opportunity to have you know, obviously where the trees would probably be going and things of that nature. So I just want to make sure that they're aware that we would, the city would be wanting them to not just clear cut stuff up there. We want to make sure that the plantings that you put in stabilize the soil. They are also not going to be an impact to the environment or the adjacent areas, things of that nature. Is there a plan in place for that?
I mean,
Oh, okay. Sorry, Julie, you
no,
go right ahead.
Go ahead. Devin, if you-
Thank you. So within the circle, which is the area you were pointing out here, yes, there are some trees, so the mowing will obviously go around the trees. To my knowledge, there's no specific plan beyond what DOT normally does for their maintenance. They've certainly been involved. They know what the plantings are. They were absolutely aware of the palette that was proposed, and they are on board with it.
Okay.
To my knowledge, there's no specialized plan beyond that.
Yeah, I just don't want to see them come in with their John Deere and just clear cut it. Yeah, I mean, obviously they're not going to do it to the trees, but the slope that goes up to the southbound side, you said you were going to be putting in grasses and things of that nature to take hold. I just want to make sure that it is given enough time to root and to stabilize the soil once it is all done.
So I think what you're, if I'm understanding correctly, is maybe don't mow that immediately, allow it time to grow in and stabilize itself.
Correct.
Understood.
There have been many restorations where they got a little overzealous and mowed things down a little too soon, and things did not have a chance to take hold. I've seen it quite a few times, and not just in Revere. It's a very common occurrence with the DOT in this. I just want to make sure that you have expectations of them in this project. I don't want to see a dead, dusty area when we get done with this. The other question I was curious is during the slip lane removal, what kind of impact, there are a lot of residents when you come off of that corner that will be impacted by the removal of the slip lane during construction. And I'm sure they're going to be looking forward to having green space, but the timetable that is going to take, what are you going to do to mitigate the impact to their properties? And what kind of restoration will you be doing if you do happen to impact their property?
Sure, I can take this question. So we'll be affecting the driveways of two of those properties, and you can see here on the screen that the driveway will be reconstructed and extended actually to the Linway. So they're being taken care of, and also as we have two pedestrian paths straight to their front doors is planned to be reconstructed. We do have a detailed traffic management plan as part of this plan set, and as part of the submission is a requirement with the state highway access permit, so which will, look to not eliminate access to private residences while this slip lane is being constructed. We do not have actually those in the PowerPoint today, unfortunately, but it has been engineered and considered so that we will not cut off access to those two private residences that have driveway curb cuts, as well as pedestrian paths to their front door.
Yeah, I would definitely be concerned for those residents, not just for the driveway cut and having access to their property, but I would definitely, since their homes are in the Barrier and Coastal Beach part of this, minimizing the impact to their property as well. I'm sure they've manicured and taken very good care of their properties in that area to mitigate that. I know they're right near a slipway, but it's someone's home, and we want to make sure that we are mindful of that and sensitive to the fact of what kind of a conservation area it is.
Agreed. And also to just also point out too that we are taking special consideration with this. There is a memorial, a monument currently in the slip lane, and that the plan and the plans should show that it's not being disturbed, it's being maintained, it's not being moved, it's actually being retained in that area. So yeah, this area was definitely considered in our design carefully. Again, not cutting off access to the private homeowners, but also to keeping that memorial as is without disturbing it during construction.
Okay. And not to get into the traffic stuff, I know we're here to discuss the Wetland Protection Act, but just being mindful that this would also make it so that the folks that live in that area aren't going to have cars zooming by them at this point. I think it is a definite improvement, just to add that to the record.
Thank you.
So as far as phase one is concerned, just be mindful of residential impact and what kind of areas you will be working in. And having a plan in place to mitigate any destabilization efforts in the area to prep this. And I want to make sure that we're limiting our impact again. I want to say that again, limiting our impact here at this point. At this time, I'd like to open it up for questions to any of the other commissioners.
Just a quick question, Mr. Chairman. I'm wondering what the diameter of the rotary is. It doesn't look much bigger than the one for the bus rotary that exists now. It looks pretty small, the actual diameter of the rotary.
Correct. So you are right. This is actually a little smaller than this call, like bell circle. I will have to, I can't remember the exact diameter from curb line to curb line, but I think it's 120-foot diameters. However, with that, we are following Mass DOT's roundabout design guide. They have very specific and prescribed diameters that and size of the roadway they can use. We've also extensively run a vehicle turning maneuver analysis so that both at minimum, actually, we've tested the largest Revere Fire Truck Department, the largest truck that the Revere Fire Department has, the 100-plus foot ladder. We have that exact model. We've run that through the roundabout works perfectly fine, as well as WB50s, tractor trailers, and W67s. We also know that there's an META bus route that runs on this will be running through this roundabout. We have tested that, and that actually works perfectly fine. There's actually, it is fully within the roadway and actually does not have any jostling going up what we call a truck apron. So there's actually, you can see here, kind of hatched in red, right beyond the yellow line, that's a truck apron. That's actually supposed to be utilized by large turning vehicles like a tractor trailer. So yeah, we understand the importance of not impeding traffic and not preventing the vehicles that need to get through the area. So that has been studied extensively, and I like to say all those vehicles work.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a few. So is the new southbound on-ramp to Route 1A going to be elevated to the existing Route 1A's current grade? Because the speed of traffic and limited distance of the on-ramp coupled with the line of sight, I just feel like could be a concern.
Yes, that is true. So what may not be too apparent here is that actually there'll be 2 retaining walls being installed to facilitate this new on-ramp. We're again called Ramp B in the design. Vehicles will start generally at the same level as the underpass where the mouse cursor is right now, but vehicles will climb, reach actually the elevation of Route 1A, and actually at this point roughly, Route 1A actually goes down and downgrade as it goes down towards John Ave and Hayes Ave. And similarly, the ramp will be doing that as well. So vehicles will have adequate time to both see oncoming vehicles, both merging and vehicles already on the main line. We're calling Route 1A southbound to accelerate to meet merging speeds, find a acceptable gap, and merge. Extensive engineering analysis has been done to ensure that we do have the necessary ramp length to safely facilitate maneuver.
Okay. Well, another thing I just want to compliment the chair on bringing up, what that circle will be in regards to things like the plants and things you have there. But my concern the second I see that is the fact that North Shore Road already never gets cleaned up. It's full of trash, that area. And I feel like that circle, which is going to be that's the gateway to Revere. Coming in from that side, it's like Point of Pines, like welcome to Point of Pines. And hey, in 6 months, nobody's cleaned anything up. So my issue is that's going to become like an area that collects bags of Doritos and all sorts of other stuff in the air, cigarettes and all this stuff. So that when people are coming to our great city and they're coming in from that area, it's welcome to Revere. And instead of there being a pretty sign, it's going to be a really not well-maintained, full of trash little circle area. So other cities, in order to combat that, they've done sponsored by. And they've had cities and they've had, companies that have sponsored that circle where they get their advertisement, which is a great area, but their job there is to maintain that area so it doesn't look like a pit. And I'm wondering if that's on your docket at all of a possibility.
So eventually it will be, but our goal tonight really is to get this permitted and and constructed. And then most likely with all of the other circles that we have here in the city, Revere Beautification Committee, MassDOT, they are the ones that kind of adopt the circle program. The circle most likely will be part of that program. I would not be surprised if the owners of Gibson Point do not adopt this circle. I mean, it is a gateway into that development, and the gateway into Gibson Park. So I'm sure eventually there will be somebody adopting the circle and making it clean. But that at this point, we're just more focused on getting the project permitted, constructed, and built. So we're looking at probably 3 years before we would have to figure out adoption of the circle, but we could definitely put it in the air of MassDOT and also the Revere Beautification Committee.
So I'm glad you brought up Gibson Point, because I was kind of wondering, as far as this overall project, of the purpose of it. Is the roads need to be redone? Is there like something big, or is it really just to be able to have it that the brand new apartment complex, Gibson Point, now has an easier way to get there? Is that like the main reason for
So,
this?
I mean, I think overall, this roundabout is to improve access for everyone to access the Riverside. So that park has been underutilized for many years. A lifelong resident of the city, you never went there because it was too difficult to get there. Many years ago, myself, Elle, we were involved in a park build in that area, and when we mentioned Gibson Park, half of the city said, "Where is that?" Well, it's on the Riverside, but nobody knows where it is because nobody can get to it. This roundabout is going to allow city residents to access the improvements in that area. This is also going to be a game changer for the Revere Fire Department. They have a brand new station, which is going to have a ladder truck, an engine truck, and all of the necessities that they need to do water rescues. They lose time every time they go down the Linway. They don't have the Building 19 parking lot to hook around anymore. That is under development. They actually have to go down, not the first set of lights, but actually the third set of lights before they can swing that ladder truck around. They lose, I think it's probably about 5 minutes. This roundabout will put them in direct line of any emergencies on the Riverside. You're shaving off 5 minutes from saving somebody's life. So you have to really look at the overall project and the benefits of this. Yes, it will lead people to that new development, but it's also going to lead people to an open space that is underutilized and that has a lot to offer the whole community. You have a public garden there, you have a beautiful playground, we're gonna have an amazing boathouse, but nobody's gonna be able to get to it if they feel like, oh, this is too much work. I gotta go all the way into Lynn, I gotta turn around, I gotta come back. I mean, it's kind of shameful that we have this open space and we're not making it accessible to everyone. In addition to this roundabout is also gonna provide a shared use path, bike lane, so you want to take your bike from Beachmont, you want to ride all the way down the boulevard and access this, you're going to have a direct line to do that. So we need to think multimodal, we need to think connection and access for everyone.
So I would just recommend in the future, as someone who, loves pitching and marketing and those things in my own life and job and history, what you just said needs to be said more, or at the front of all this stuff. I would just bullet point all the things you said, because that makes a lot more sense than what I've seen so far of literally everything else. So I applaud you for what you just stated. That needs to be like front page kind of, they call it above the fold.
Right.
That needs to be above the fold, especially the fire department side. So I appreciate you stating that. And that kind of changes my opinion of the project, because before it just kind of looked like, why are we doing this? And now
Right.
that makes a lot more sense. So
And
I say
I
thank
think, and this is a discussion we go back and forth in our own office. A master plan of any area is going to include all of the components of planning. So it is going to include, some level of housing, some level of recreation, some level of infrastructure improvements. This project took into looking at all of those levels, all of those different aspects of a master plan project. Now, some parts of those projects got put out front and center, and that kind of took away from the public positive benefits of this project, but at the end of the day, this is going to be a game changer for a lot of people here in the city, especially for those, like you said, you like to access the water. Yeah, I'm a swimmer. I wouldn't mind trying to swim out over in that area. We have people here in the room that like to boat, kayak, canoe. Now they have direct access to the water without having to lug everything, someplace else.
My only last comment on this, and then I'm good, is if there's any way of requiring the Gibson Park Apartments to do more as far as the beautifying of that area of any way in what you're doing, because I don't think there is on our side, I would highly recommend that whatever they can be on the hook for, and I mean as much as humanly possible, I would try to put into whatever documentation things you're doing, that since we're helping them out as a city to get it to make their lives easier, for them to be able to get more people for their apartments, for them to make more money, which is great. I'm a
Right.
capitalist, I'm great with that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like they owe the city of Revere for beautifying that area since it's a gateway to their apartments.
Right.
If you have any way of trying to convince them to beautify that area more than it is so that people can see the beautiful Gibson Park and all that, I just would add that, and then that's all I really had to say on that.
So they are currently beautifying their stretch of the riverside, their property line. They've also contributed funds to restore some of the shoreline off of Gibson Park. They are contributing to the Community Investment Trust Fund. I don't know how much that is, but that is a requirement of that project. That money is designated specifically for that ward. So and it usually comes from a request from the city councilor to the mayor, but that could be a request that, that money be used to beautify that area, fill in the gaps of where we're missing from this project, or even from the developer. But that could be a perfect way to spend that money.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Please, yes, so at this time, any other questions concerning the Wetland Protection Act about this phase of the project?
Yeah, erosion controls, I didn't see much, or what are your plans and in terms of that, controlling when doing the construction?
Yeah, so I'll go back to the plan set here.
And before you begin, I'd like to make sure that everybody is aware, we should be talking about the Wetland Protection Act. We are not the Traffic Commission. And we are not here to talk about a lot of the concerns and how it's all going to impact. Let's stick to the topic at hand about this project.
So on areas of disturbance, like I'll focus here on the current slope of, as we construct Ramp B, MassDOT standard detail being used for the sediment control barrier, as you can see here outlined right near the limit of grading. So because within state right of way, and this is needs to meet state standards, we'll be using Mass DOT's sediment control barrier, and that will actually go out through an entire project area of disturbance, as you can see here on the planned north side along Gibson Way. As the mouse is tracking, there'll be proposed sediment control barrier.
They've done quite an extensive amount of repair and restoration over at Gibson Point, and definitely want to make sure that the erosion controls are in place to secure that area as well. It's definitely a lot better than it was, than the G&J area that it used to be.
Just sediment and control, or are you doing, what about the drainage on the street? Because are we doing some of that as well?
Are we doing silt sacks on
Yes,
the
so
stormwater
we'll
management
do
systems?
any existing and proposed catch basins
Okay.
existing catch basins. So prior to the commence of the project, during the project, following MassDOT standard details and procedures, silt sacks will be used for all catch basin inlet protection. Actually, as part of this project, we have requirement to clean existing sediment.
Okay.
And both the catch basin and the manholes themselves, so the structures as well as the pipes, a certain percentage of the pipes will need to be cleaned in order before the project's turned back over and completed. So that's part of the project.
Yeah, that's what I just want to make sure that we had it. Thank you.
Another question that I have is, what will DOT be doing prior to construction to ensure that the stormwater management system in that area is adequate enough to move water around while you are during this phase of the construction, I've noticed that I drive that area back and forth to Salem every single day. And I have noticed that those storm drains are definitely not in great condition, and that I would advise that they are cleaned out prior to any construction so that water can move effectively.
Noted, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions from the commissioners? At this time, I'd like to open it up to the audience. Any proponents for this project, please come forth. Anybody on Zoom any proponents on Zoom? Hearing none, or did any opponents to this project?
Council Sawyer, can you unmute if you were trying to speak?
I will state, again, I don't know if I said my name earlier. I'm Pete Robleski with Howard Stein Hudson. I don't think I can count as a proponent since I'm on the design team, but I would consider myself one if possible.
Thank you, Peter.
Council Sawyer, are you able to unmute?
No,
She should be able to unmute, I believe. Andrew, just checking.
no, it would be on her end. She would have to unmute herself. Or maybe he has it all muted.
Council Sawyer, are you able to unmute?
Angela, if you can hear us, could you unmute yourself if you do have a question, or maybe type it in? Maybe she's typing it in at this point.
Counselor, are you able to unmute or type in the chat?
It's saying that I can't unmute.
Oh, there you are. There you are.
We can hear you.
Excellent, thank you.
It was telling me that I could not unmute. Okay, I have a couple of things I want to discuss. Julie, you were talking about how they're going to be having some green space available. And you mentioned the CIT funds. We won't be using CIT funds for that. That is up to Gibson Point to be taking care of it, since this roundabout is for them. And I don't want to hear anything different from that. I know it's for them. Now, Peter, you were talking about Riverside, how it's not going to be an imposition on the Point of Pines residents, but then you were talking about rerouting traffic through the Point of Pines. That's my second concern. And then my third is, Julie, you were talking about notifications being sent to Point of Pines and Riverside residents for whatever phases were coming up next and step-by-step of what was being done. I want to make sure that that is not going to be within 300 and 500 feet, but instead to all residents that will be impacted. So whether we're moving from one area to another, and you have to reroute the traffic from Bateman to one of the other streets, then I need to make sure that all the residents that will be impacted at some point will be notified. Sorry, I finally got this thing to work. And I think that's about it. Then I'm worried about the safety access. I wanted to go over improving the safety access that you were discussing as well. So I have a many phase question.
So in regards of notifying the residents regarding any type of construction schedule or any type of detours or any parts of this project will most likely happen once the project has been awarded to a contractor. There'll be another meeting well, we'll talk about the construction schedule. When it comes to detours and any of that type of stuff, we'll be talking, we'll be sending out direct 311s to the residents in the area. Nothing is going to happen like it did I think it was 2 winters ago now, where the southbound ramp got shut down. Nobody knew about it. Everybody was freaking out in the Pines. That will not happen this time. So we are committed to making sure that residents know the schedule far in advance. I personally adopt a practice where any type of construction schedule, I receive an update depending on the scope and size of the project. It's usually 2 weeks or 1 week. I get a week's notice or 2 weeks notice of what's happening 2 weeks prior, or the 2 weeks following that. So, and that will get passed on to you.
And I think that we've addressed that, considering the nature of the area and the extensive nature of this project, that the concerns of residents will definitely be addressed as it comes up.
That is correct, and I cannot. I know there's been a lot of concerns with residents regarding, are you going to shut my street down? Are you going to detour traffic through my area? I can't answer that right now because we do not have 100% stamp plans from MassDOT, and our traffic mitigation and any type of detours, that needs to be approved by them. And until we get that approval, I cannot speak to what that will look like. But as I've said before, we're committed to holding a meeting with you and your constituents prior to construction kicking off.
And thank you for that, Julie. One more question is, you said that there was no traffic counts done for the Linway on our side. Instead of, you did the Gibson Point side. Why wasn't a traffic count done on the Point of Pine side on how it could affect us?
So I believe it was done. It's in the NOI. Peter, do you have the count for that?
Yes, we did take counts on both sides of 1A. I think what Julie mentioned earlier was we could not forecast traffic counts or impact for any developments that happened in Lynn, because I know that was a question that came up at one point, where maybe there's a future development planned in Lynn, and how might this impact traffic? We reached out to Lynn and asked about future developments they planned, and what we talked with them is that anything that is developed or built in Lynn, that project will be responsible for identifying those traffic counts, because we can't forecast what isn't built yet. But in terms of this project area specifically, we took traffic counts pretty much in and out to Point of Pines, north of the Point of Pines neighborhood, south of the Point of Pines neighborhood, on Riverside and Point of Pines side, basically at the General Edwards Bridge, and then all the way down at like Archer, I think, at where Mills Ave ends. So we've got pretty extensive traffic counts for this entire area. And we actually...
That's Riverside. That is not the Point of Pine side.
Okay. At this point, right now, we are not here to discuss traffic patterns. We are not here to discuss the impact that the traffic is going to make on the residents. We are here to discuss the impact that this project is going to make on the Wetland Protection Act. Period. And if the questions that come up from here on in, these are questions for another commission. These are questions for a completely different setting. I just want everybody to be mindful of that. Now, any other questions that we have are going to be addressed, in a sense, in another setting and another time. At this time, I would like any other follow-up questions that are concerning this project from the Wetland Protection Act. Hearing none, I would like to call for a motion to close the hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
we have people in the audience.
Oh, apologies, I retract that. Thank you. And keeping in mind before you come up,
My name is Jorge Monzon. I'm resident of Rivera. I actually live on 5 Olden Ave, right in front of the fire station. I'm very new to this. It's a lot of information for me. I think based on the Wetland Protection Act, I don't know if this will come into consideration, but when you want to get rid of the slope lane that we were talking about, the slip lane,
yes.
right? I think it's going to have a big impact on that
So-
area.
So the slip lane is definitely more of a traffic issue.
Yes.
But taking away that slip lane, it adds more green space, which is something that I would want.
Okay.
Having a slip lane in there makes, just for the sake of brevity here, it makes it so that residents just come off that ramp and zoom into the traffic
Okay.
flow without stopping. I've been on that side coming down.
Yeah, we live right there,
and
yeah.
and it is definitely not good. But from my perspective, taking the slip lane out of there and adding more green space is something we certainly want to enhance, especially in this area that is coastal
Yeah,
and
I've
barrier
I've
beach.
cleaned that little lane right there with my daughter actually last week. So,
Yeah.
and the other thing, it's I'm wondering why there's no more residents from that area here, because we barely got a notice from it. We didn't know this was going on.
So I think it's more of a case because the construction hasn't really, all of it has not been permitted, correct, Julie? So we don't really know what to advise residents about and what is exactly going to happen
Okay.
in this area. We have a general scope, we have a general understanding of what we're going to be doing, but we don't have the full scope, and we don't want to misinform residents.
For sure.
But rest assured that you will receive anything
we-
that is going to impact you.
We found out we have an easement on our property,
Mm-hmm.
and we really thought our house was going to be cut in half. So that's why we came here and get informed.
I haven't heard
about that.
anything that the city is going to be taking things by eminent domain, I'm assuming? No. We're actually going to be giving more green space back to the residents at this point, from what I can see from the scope of the project.
appreciate
So it's going to be more green space for you, more beautification of you at the front of your home. You live on that corner of the slipway, correct?
I'm
You're-
right in front of the fire station.
Okay, so yes, so it would be definitely more green space for you in this. It'd be more grass and flowers and trees and whatever else you decide to put in that green way that you're going to be adding to there. So it'd be more of an enhancement in front of your property and getting the road away from your property than it would be adding more congestion, and residents will find it, I think, more of a treat that cars aren't just slipping right off of the exit into your neighborhood.
For sure, yeah, like someone from the forum mentioned, you know, I've been taking care more of that little slope than anybody else. So hopefully there is a plan to, you know, somebody to like be on top of those things.
To Commissioner Everbeck's point, we don't want to see people throwing bags of trash or, you know, whatever it is down
I
there.
had to pick up a
That whole-
skunk 2 weeks ago from that area, so.
Yep, and I'm sure that as plans get solidified, that we will have a more robust plan and people will start to sponsor those areas. And I'm sure a greenway that is as large as that little, where that slipway used to be, might even get sponsored, seeing as how it has a memorial there as well.
For sure.
I hope, that would be my hope, to have that, someone maintaining that on the regular.
Can I also ask, I'm Kristen Anzoni, I'm his wife, and we live in the area. Julie, you had mentioned that you were hoping that this would attract more people to the area and get them to visit the playground, get them to maybe dip into the beach. I will say that the Rotary has not, we lived on the other side of Revere. I would say the Rotary is not the reason why my family had not visited before. It was just, it's also the Linway. But my question to you, and this is pertaining to the wetlands, is your hope is that by redesigning this Rotary, that it will attract more people to the playgrounds and to the beach. Well, the beach is taken care of by the residents. The residents is a private beach. The residents take care of it. On Saturdays, I think once a month, Angela organizes a group of people to go out and take care of it. Your hope is that it attracts more people.
They can be there.
If it's a private beach, that's one. Two, how are they going to help us take care of our beach and preserve the beach and the areas around there?
So that, I would assume, would be, as this project unfolds and we have more information, we don't have all the information at this point, I would say, how that is going to unfold, but I'll let you speak a little bit to that.
So this project, you're talking about the beach off of Rice Ave or just all around? Okay, so.
I mean, how are we gonna protect it if we're inviting more people?
Well, so first of all, the Riverside is a public place. So if I choose to go there, I have full right to go there. I know that the Point of Pines Beach off of Rice Ave is community controlled by the Point of Pines Association. But you cannot stop anybody from accessing the water at the high tide line on either side.
Right.
So if I'm on Revere Beach and I decide I want to walk my way to the Point of Pines in the water, I have a full right to do that. That is my right. So you technically cannot stop people from walking by your beach or visiting the Riverside Beach. That is, especially on the Riverside. I think that this project, this roundabout project, is just to improve access to the area. Now, that is something that the Point of Pines Association will have to work with the city and MassDOT to understand what type of mitigation that they are willing to put in to protect a private beach that people can't access on one side of the Point of Pines, and then the public beach that is open for everybody. So I think the purpose of tonight's project is to talk about the roundabout, talk about erosion control, how we are going to protect the current wetlands that are open to everyone, and that we are making sure that the current plantings that are there that protect the barrier beach remain intact, they're protected, and also when the project is over, what we do to replace that. In terms of taking care of the beaches, that's a discussion for another day that is out of the scope of this project. More than happy to, once this project gets going, if you feel as though more people are coming to the area, that's a conversation that the ward council can begin with the city. But on the Riverside, you cannot restrict people from using that waterway. That is a public waterway. It will remain a public waterway, and that is access and open to anybody who wants to use it.
Thank you for that explanation.
I can definitely see your concern. Increased foot traffic is going to put an impact on the beaches and waterways in that area. But it is a public area, and that, no, go ahead.
I understand that, I know it's a public area, but if our goal also is to increase it, how are we gonna protect that land or that space?
So you.
And that can be another
Right,
meeting,
but
and that's
that is-
fine, I
but
just wanna air
That is
that.
something that you would have to work out. The Point of Pines Association is gonna actually have to work that out with the city of Revere.
Sure.
That is
What-
not in the scope of this project tonight. And once again, if you are a visitor of Revere Beach, if you choose to walk the water line, you can technically be on the Point of Pines
Right, but we're
Beach.
gonna increase the number of people that are gonna have access to
People
that.
have the right to do
is all I'm
that
saying.
at the water line.
Yep.
They have the right to do that.
Right, the low
That
medium
is the
water
law.
line. Yes.
Okay, so you cannot stop people.
But they're walking versus driving a car.
But they have the right to do that. And if they
Right.
decide,
Okay. This isn't, hold on, time out. This isn't a debate right now, and it's one person at the mic at a time, not back and forth. That's how a public meeting works. I don't want to have to lay out rules again about how this works. And I would appreciate if it was one at a time, not back and forth. And I want to make sure that the residents have your concerns been met? Do you feel satisfied in the answers that you have received?
Yeah, like I said, it's our very first time. This is brand new to us. I appreciate all the information that has been given to us. Yeah, like I said, we would love to be on the loop of everything that is going on, and hopefully everything works out for the
certainly will.
residents.
We would definitely be fully transparent. It is the law to be transparent in this situation, fully, 100%.
I would just ask too that the residents are aware of the time and the meeting place. I received both letters and I did not know the time of this meeting or any of those other meetings that may have happened.
So
It was
the best
not-
place to find those things are in the Revere Journal. It is posted online when we do have our meetings. We are the first Wednesday of the month, 6:30 PM in these council
Yeah.
chambers. This is a special meeting. Unfortunately, we did not have a quorum last time. I don't want to get into it, but this is a special meeting, but we are usually the first Wednesday of every month.
Okay. Yeah, because we're the only ones here from the neighborhood, so I'm assuming more would have, I'm assuming the people that are connected to this would be more interested too and probably didn't have any idea what's
There's
going
also
on.
the Revere website. So if you just
Yeah,
look
I
up
can
the Conservation Commission, they have like a meeting calendar with everything that you'd be able to see that too.
Yeah, there's a city events calendar that has every single public meeting posted.
Thank you, Amelia.
You just go on the city website and look up events. There's a calendar right on the homepage, and the commission meetings, as well as every other like city council meetings, will be posted there if you are ever looking for them.
So are there any other questions from anybody on Zoom or anybody in the audience at this time?
Commissioner Rudolph, I just want to mention that the Department of Planning and Community Development has a robust newsletter that gets published at the end of every month. Every project that we're working on, especially this project, whether it's related to the infrastructure improvements, to the Gibson Park improvements, all of that is posted in the newsletter monthly. So I strongly suggest anybody watching tonight that has not signed up for a newsletter to do so. You will get notice of all meetings, notification, public filing, records, anything that you need related to this project.
Excellent. Thank you for the information. So last call. Any more questions from anybody else? Commissioners included.
I just, in regarding with the information, I agree that there is work to do. I hate to say this, but honestly, I started learning about this project when I got involved into this. I also want to appreciate you doing, you said you went out with your daughter picking up the trash. I really appreciate that. I think stuff like that can just brush, but I think that's protecting the environment, protecting the wetlands. I appreciate it. I do that with my kids as well, and I'm glad that other people are doing that, so thank you. But I agree with you. We should do, I think there should be ways where people get informed about these projects. I think if they live in from where this project is happening, a letter on the mail or something, they're busy, they have kids. I'm in the same boat, and you're saying, go to a website, check this. I'm sorry, I don't think we will do that. If I'm a regular citizen, I wouldn't expect me to do that when it's some work happen on the street. So there is some work that should be done. I think better communication to the residents, I agree. I think that should be, if I'm in his shoe, I think there should be like a letter or something to the community.
So we are trying our best to communicate all aspects of this project. We have several channels that we're using. We are only required, city ordinance, to notify abutters of the project within 300 feet. For this notice of intent, we were only required to notify abutters of 100 feet. For both notifications, for the MIPA single environmental review, we expanded that requirement 600 feet, both ways. So instead of only sending out letters to approximately 100, those letters went out to 500 residents in the area. For this notice of intent, once again, that 100-feet buffer was expanded in a circle, so you're actually talking about, would we end up encompassing about 200, 250 feet of the whole project area, expanding the notice from 50 abutters to 175?
The notice of intent, abutter notices followed state law, so they were within
Yeah.
100 feet of the limit of work.
So we are doing everything we can to make sure this is that people are notified. I currently have a list of anybody who attends the public meetings. They get a notification. Once again, I strongly encourage people of the Point of Pines and the Riverside to sign up for the DPCD newsletter. Also check our website. There's abundance of information on there. We have prioritized projects. This is one of them. And you can see all of the information on there. We are not trying to hide anything. We want full transparency in this process.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, hearing no more questions, I'd like to close the hearing. Can I call for a motion to close the hearing?
Motion to close the hearing?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Excellent. Hearing is now closed. So at this time, this project has some strict adherence to the Wetlands Protection Act, and seeing as from your erosion controls to the notifications that you've made to the project, the overall scope of the project and its benefit and minimization of impact, that I think this is going to be something that is going to enhance the area instead of diminish it. We're adding extra green space, we're adding a more convenient and more robust emergency access to the area, and we're also giving abundance of residents access to areas and easements and roadways that they need to instead of taking that hairpin turn where G&J used to be. So at this time, I would like to call for an approval of this notice, of this order of conditions, excuse me, or notice of intent, excuse me. Oh my God.
I'll make a motion to approve the NOI.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. So we did have a few other, we had some site visits that I just want to make sure that we get on record here. Obviously, 810 Washington Avenue, Gibson Park, 55 Sagamore we had last month, 190 VFW Parkway, the high school project, 96 Lee Burbank Highway, that was for a deconstruction, and the Suffolk Downs road improvements as well. At this time, I'd like to open up any discussion. Any commissioners from the Zoom have anything that they'd like to discuss, or any of the commissioners here? Okay, hearing none, I would like to call for a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.